5, 4, 3.
Hello and welcome to Sheer Fucking Hubris, a podcast started by three friends, three fans of Star Trek. And our continuing mission is to watch episodes every week and talk about them and have a good time. I am Joe Bob. Joining me is Biblio Warden
Hello.
and Mr. Willie.
Hello.
How are you gentlemen doing this evening?
Not too bad.
I'm fantastic.
It's hot as fuck.
That it is, Edward.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have the good sense to be a Yankee. It's actually not too bad up here by the lake.
Well, it feels like I'm on goddamn Vulcan fighting a... Oh, bring me my Lurpa.
Hey, you only got a couple more days and you'll be all set.
That sounds like a mixed drink, you know?
A Lurpa?
Yeah.
We got mixed drinks in this episode coming up.
That we do.
That we do.
And we've got pike cooking.
We always
We
got pike
can't
cooking.
go an episode without pike cooking. And which one of you fellas called that we had one hijinks episode remaining on Strange New Worlds?
I said
I
there
think
was
you
one
and Warden
more.
both did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, though? I might know just a little bit that suggests that there may be another what could be called hijinks episode later, but...
Nope. We gotta
Oh
keep
no,
it
this is
to a
getting
season.
dangerously close to hijinks. Well, look, I need you to really dial up your game with the Picard recap tonight because I don't remember anything about it. I mean, I do remember it kind of being like Pan's Labyrinth starring Brent Spiner, but like everything is just so forgettable about this season. Like I'll watch an episode and then it all just runs together. I honestly can't remember what I just watched. And now I'm like, was this in this episode or was it the episode before? Or am I just making this up?
I think that's actually a good thing. It runs together because it's a coherent part of a larger story.
Maybe
As
so.
opposed to last.
There you go.
As opposed to last season, where I think we described it as Mad Lib Star Trek style. Just
maybe so. So was William Riker in every episode that we watched this week? I don't guess he was in.
No, he wasn't in Strange New Worlds.
I don't guess he was. I don't know if he was alluded to though. He was in the.
He directed it though.
Yeah, but he was in the Lower Decks that we watched last week.
Previously, yes,
Right.
yes.
That's right. Man.
And now you know why I made sure we did the Lower Decks.
Riker just has his nuts all over all the Star Trek everywhere, doesn't he?
Yes,
he is nutting everywhere.
Oh man.
He's got the big horn.
Speaking of which, well, I guess I'll hold it back. I'll hold it back till we talk about the episode.
All right. Well, let's start out.
Which one though? You don't know. Was it the first one he was in this week, the second one he was in this week, or the third one he was in this week?
Or
it'll be a toss up.
Yeah, or the one that he
Stick around to find out.
Great. Anyway, well, let's start with Picard. Since you don't remember it, since it's only a chapter of a coherent story. We pick up moving right along. This is season 3, episode 7, Dominion.
What could they possibly be alluding to with that?
I think they're alluding to the Dominion of the Jem'Hadar, Changelings, and Vorta.
Okay.
And the Dominion Wars, you know? That was like a big arc on DS9.
Oh, okay, really? Okay.
I think that's the reference.
Sure.
This week's not quite as much of an Easter egg factory as last week.
Hmm.
No, definitely not.
But still plenty of tugging on the old nostalgia dick. And in fact, that's how we open up. We open up in the Chintaka system, which I was like, hey, Chintaka system has two massive battles there in the Deep Space Nine Dominion War arc. So we see all the wreckage, which I thought was kind of cool. And then, then who we throw up on screen, but good old Tuvok. Seven's contacted him for some help.
Yeah. He
She
checks 2 boxes. He is both Vulcan and black. So moving right along with him. Oh, 3 boxes. He is Vulcan, black, and a changeling, right?
Yeah. Everyone would love to see him in their college admission. I guess.
That's right.
I don't know what you're going
really,
for here, Willie.
I don't know. Well, technically, he could be whatever he needed to be.
Moving along, she talks to him and is trying to suss him out to see if he's changeling or not. Turns out he is, because she says something that only the real Tuvok would know, but she had done that already, so she's like, so you must have the Tuvok. He's like, I have the Tuvok, and
he's
he'll wish
begging
he
for
was
death.
dead.
Yeah. It's quite sinister, but all right.
And they're like, God damn it, we really got to quit doing this. So, they mentioned Rafi. They're like, have we heard from Rafi? I'm like, no, don't bring Rafi into this. They're like, nope. she's still monitoring Starfleet channels to see if there's any mention of Riker. I was like, okay.
And may God have mercy on whoever Worf runs into.
I still think that was a badass line. And woe be unto the man or beast or God who stands in my way.
That's right.
I'm gonna start using that at work. Like, hey, can you turn in an expense report? I will complete the expense report, and woe be to the man or beast or God who stands in my way. I like it. All right, so they talk a little bit about the Dominion War. They're like, hey, in case anybody forgot, we introduced some genocide, but we also gave them the cures, so eh, it's okay. And we are also working on data, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Working on data down in engineering, and they even though they know he's lore, they've hooked him into the computer system. I'm like, that will go well.
Well, it worked well in season 2, so
Yep.
why not roll with it again?
And even though last week they specifically said there were 5 personalities in there, Geordi's like, but there's 4 distinct personalities: Data, Soong, Lore, and B4. I'm like, I guess we just forgot about Lau this week, but whatever.
Well, Al's not important. She's a woman.
But even then, it's like those 2 are just afterthoughts. They're just like memories. Really, the only personalities we have are Data and Lore.
Right.
And they're battling it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like
There are
yin
2
and yang.
wolves inside every android. Oh,
Nice.
If this was a Lower Decks episode, there would be like a little devil Lore and an angel Data who popped up on the shoulders. And
That
would actually be awesome.
Yeah,
It will happen. We don't know.
I would be totally fine with that. Anyway, Picard's talking to him, and he says, we need to know why the changelings stole my body and what they're doing to it. I just picture like the changelings like sodomizing him and laughing, and Picard watching it in terror. Anyway, and Data says,
They have me drinking white wine.
Cat House Dickard. Anyway, and Data is goleming back and it's Spinerbot because it's everybody. So Spinerbot is goleming between Data and Lore. He's like, I'm so sick of seeing your ugly face. He's like, why did they want my body? And he's like, well, the original diagnosis of the irritable brain syndrome is questionable. And then Data comes back and is like, help me, Picard. You're my only hope. Picard's like, I've killed him
Bring him
twice.
back. Yeah.
He won't stay dead. Shut him off. So they shut him off, and he's like, can we just erase this lore fucker? And Geordi's like, look, this is 21st century TV bullshit. Not that 20th century TV bullshit. It's way more complicated. He's like, hey, if I reformat it, we could lose Data forever. And I don't know if I could live through that.
Go through that again.
Everybody cares about Data. It was a nice scene, I guess. I like Geordi and Data. Oh, and Beverly calls Picard and says, hey, I think I might be able to isolate him, but I got a little ethical dilemma. And he's like, what's that? She's like, well, you know, when you target a people based on their blood, that's kind of called genocide. Picard's like, hey, start the work and we'll figure it out later. In an extremely Picard way. He's like, you know, we'll worry about the ethics down the road. You just make your genocide device, and you know.
He was dead. We don't have anybody. There's no further trials.
Because there's no problem with having it available and making it even easier to do it.
Well, they can always.
Has already been set with the Kronos killer.
Well,
I guess he's thinking they could always store it safely away on Daystrom Station where no one nefarious would ever get their hands on it.
It's true. I mean, everybody thought the Nazis fled to Venezuela. Now we know that they ended up on Daystrom Station.
Well, they hid out in Chateau Picard for a while.
That's true.
Indeed.
Yeah, it reminded me of Marvel, the Illuminati, when they made the device to destroy universes, just in case they ever had to, but they'd never use it. And Captain America was like, I know you fuckers, you'll build it because you can, and then because you have it, you'll convince yourself you need to use it. It's like the only way to not use it is just not build the goddamn thing. And they're like, shut the fuck up, Steve Rogers, you're making too much sense. Doctor Strange, please mind whammy him. Or Professor X, whatever. Erase his mind and kick him off the Illuminati. They needed a Captain America to stand up here, but they didn't. Anyway, Beverly has a little bit of a crisis of conscience, so that you know that she's not a bad person, when later in the episode she decides like, we should just totally kill this unarmed prisoner.
Yeah. Well, what you didn't see is she actually retired to the holodeck to run through the final mission of the NX-01 Enterprise to try and work through her ethical dilemmas.
Oh, we'll get there, Willie.
We'll get some mileage out of this one, buddy.
What a tapestry we weave. Okay.
We had a reference to Tapestry, big link to Tapestry.
Yes, we did.
Mm-hmm.
So let's catch up back on the strike, where Vatic is talking to disembodied, bacony, sinewy, floaty head changeling, and he's reminding her that the window's closing.
So's the door.
Yeah.
I didn't know they did that anymore.
That's not how that song goes, but
No.
nice Frozen reference. And she says that Riker and Troy have not, she hasn't been able to break them yet. He's like, well, whatever. They're not in this episode, so we're not going to worry about them. She's like, fair enough. And then, meanwhile, let's see, Jack is still hearing the voices, but he's alone with Sydney, and he's like, you know what might make me feel better? A little bit of LaForge booty. So he's like, the ship's half empty. I found myself a cracking VIP suite. Why don't you come over and hang out? She's like, he's hot, but I wish he'd pump the brakes a little. Yeah. Just touch my hand.
She just grabbed my ass or something.
Yeah. So he grabs her ass, and she's like, what made you do that? Because Jack's bulimic. He can read minds now.
Yeah.
That's a Zoolander reference.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I'll save it till the end of the episode.
I don't
Go
know.
on.
Apparently, Jack was created from the whole TNG cast, and he got
Yes.
Troy's mind reading ability or something. I don't know.
Look, look,
Mhm.
His eyes glow
look.
red, and he does a thing.
I'm prepping my victory lap. Y'all made fun of me about the turkey baster. Something's gonna be up with that. He's gonna wind up being like a genetically modified embryo or some crazy shit like that.
I was
Because
fully on board with the turkey baster. I said that from the beginning.
he's got way too much stuff going on.
I think that while Beverly was still in Starfleet, they put her through a procedure whilst he was in utero and injected some changeling in him, and where they're talking about he belong when they start talking about he needs to go where back home or back where he
Right, where he
belongs. I think they're
belongs or what
yeah,
he is or some bullshit like that.
yep,
Yep. Because they kept calling him the asset.
yep. And they told Beverly and Picard he was never yours to begin with. I think, yep. Uh,
Anywho,
Nope.
anywho, no, Warden is
Still don't see it.
Warden is still on board with the Borg thing.
Warden is so pure of heart.
Anywho, the bridge gets another transmission, and Shaw's like, just fucking hang up again. He's like, decline the call. She's like, but this one has the prefix code.
I
So
didn't
somehow
quite
that
follow
lets
all the
I
techno babble in
I
that
didn't
scene.
think I didn't think it made sense. What they told us was that means they have Riker and he's compromised, and it's supposed to let them know where we are, but I don't think it did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's move on.
Quickly.
Quickly,
Don't
quickly. Do not
don't
engage your
dwell.
brain. Jack has a good this little talk with Picard about how he's like, I don't think I'm worth this. Like Riker's got a child, and I hear voices, and Picard's like, you hear what? Jack's like, yeah. It's sort of Picard cuts him off. He's like, maybe we could have the advantage. I'm like, dude, let him fucking talk. But anyway, because Jack says
I
something.
don't have time for expository dumps. This is episode 7. Shut up and get in your bait uniform.
I really like Jack. I really like all the characters on this show this season. He says something like, I don't mind a fight when it's fair, or if it's not fair and I'm the one that's cheating. Um, anyway, um, so Jean-Luc says, well, maybe we could have the advantage. So they call up the Shrike somehow, or let them do a trace. And because they're in the scrapyard, they find a Vulcan cruiser and somehow, I guess, plant a beacon, distress beacon on the Vulcan cruiser, saying, we're dead in the water. Oh no, they're dead in the water too. Somebody come help us. And then they play dead, like the opossum. And Vadix shows up as like, they're right there. Let's go get them. They're like, it could be a trap. She's like, I know it could be a trap. Let's still go get them. She says, but don't use any transporters. So
Can't trap me.
there's still something about the transporters. Because didn't they replace all the transporter officers? Didn't they make a statement about that earlier in the season too?
Something like that. Yeah.
I don't remember, but Roe definitely didn't want to transport.
Yeah, but the changelings transported off of her
Probably,
shuttle.
it's probably because Reginald Barclay's like the transporter cop, and he's stuck in there like in whatever episode that was, and he's the only one that can finger him out of a lineup.
Maybe the transporter like degrades their the half-life of their stabilizing isotope and brings them closer to death or something. I don't know. Anyway, they get on board the Titan, and the Titan has prepared a little bit of a trap with force fields, and they start chasing each other, and they drop the force fields and raise the force fields, whatever. Anyway,
And obviously I'm giving a pass to this, but wasn't the Titan a really big ship?
mm, I, I don't think it is. I think it's the same size as the Constitution.
Maybe not. I just feel like a lot happens in a really small area in this ship.
I mean, I tend to agree. And
I
all the hallways
don't
are a circle that run through sick bay and engineering.
I don't know if it's any long. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would have to get into sources that would probably be spoilery to find out. So
Yeah.
It's too bad the saucer section didn't spin and they could have just like caught him in a revolving door. There they are. There they are. There they are.
Starship saucer sections don't spin. That'd be goddamn ridiculous, Willie.
Like Chevy Chase trying to get out of a roundabout.
Or Balky Bortakamus trying to get out of a revolving door.
Balky.
nice.
Ooh, that's a deep cut.
That is a
Nice.
deep cut.
I thought European
Love it.
vacation was deep, but whew, you took me to the cleaners on that one, Joe Bob.
Perfect strangers. Wow.
You are causing Larry Appleton. Oh, I miss whatever.
That show was so big in my house when I was growing up that we actually measured time in Belky's when I was in.
I still want to visit Meepos, but I'm very, very disappointed it doesn't exist. Oh, whatever happened to Bronson Pinchot? He's still
He's
around.
done
He's-
stuff here
he
and
still
there.
work?
He was on a few episodes of Third Rock from the Sun.
Was he?
Yeah.
I'm surprised I haven't tried to remake that show with all the other TGIF shows that have gotten remade. They could have a lineup of Fuller House, Girl Meets World, and Perfect Strangers. Anyway,
He's done stuff as recently as 2022. So
he survived the pandemic. Way to go, Balky. Anyway, they managed to wall off a couple changelings. I think maybe Jack and Sydney get trapped together, but the big
but
thing
I got
is
the impression that was by design.
he said technically it worked. I'm like, well, yay, hooray for plans. But the big thing is they get Vatic trapped in sick bay, and Beverly wants a minute. It's like, why do you want my son? And Vatic's like, are you doing bad cop? Beverly's like, I took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm, but I've also got an itchy trigger finger. She's like, God damn, this is not a good look on you, doctor. And then Picard walks in. He's like, I'm here to be understanding. And she's like, there he is. There's good cop.
It's about time.
Oh, and she's like,
Who's the other
oh,
guy? He's stuck in traffic.
I'm bored. Picard's like, we know what the jig is up. We know what you're up to. You want to use my old body and Jack's new blood to make a perfect doppelganger. She's like, you have no idea. And Picard's like, look, the Dominion War's over. Yeah, it was bad on both sides. She's like, bad? We were just fighting a war. You jumped straight to fucking genocide. And Picard's like, well, we gave you a cure. She's like, no, you created a cure, voted not to give it, and one of our own had to steal it and give it back. And Picard's like,
That's
potato.
what the history books say.
Potato patinocide, you know? And Vatic kind of gives her backstory.
Was that canon? Because I never saw the conclusion of the Dominion War in DS9.
I mean, they gave it to Odo. I do think that Starfleet did not want to give it to the Changelings. But I thought that Starfleet, like that Odo's friends helped him take the cure back to them. Am I remembering that wrong, Borden?
I think you're remembering it
I guess
you're remembering it correctly. Yeah.
Well, maybe Rene Auberjonois died before he delivered it.
No, he delivered it.
No.
You see him deliver it in in the last episode of DS9, I think. When, by the way, when we're talking about genocide, he delivers it to him. He's like, "Look, if you will stop attempting to eradicate every man, woman, and child on Cardassia, I'll give you the cure." Because they had pulled their fleet back to Cardassia, and the Changeling was like, "You know what? Fuck it. I am done with these shits. I want you to just annihilate every city." And they killed a few billion of them, and then Odo's like, "Hey, stop and I'll give you the cure." And she's like, whatever. Link up with me, baby. Anyway,
Star Trek's real big on delivering cures, aren't they? There was a cure. A damn cure. Let's see, so Bones' dad died right before there was a cure given. Apparently, the Dominion War didn't get the cure in a timely manner. Riker's oldest son died from a disease that they would have had a cure for if they hadn't have outlawed AI or whatever, not AI, but synthetic life. Kind of a recurring theme.
a little bit, I guess. I mean, it is 3 examples in,
400
10,000
episodes.
hours. But yeah. Anyway, we figure out why Vadic is in such a shitty mood. Because she was taken prisoner with 9 other changelings, and they were
And
experimented
test
on.
tubes.
And the lady that looked like Vadic whistled while she worked, and
That would drive me insane. I have empathy and sympathy. I can't stand people whistling unnecessarily in the first place, but if they were doing it while they were torturing me, I might have a problem.
I mean, it's what if your choices are whistling or Stuck in the Middle with You by Steeler's Wheel?
is that a Reservoir Dogs reference?
It is.
Nice. Why am I Mr. Pink? Anyway,
I know the
so
answer to that question, but my wife is in the room.
so Starfleet created the perfect monster because they were working on these changelings to develop them into a weapon. And I'm like, I totally believe Starfleet would do something this level of evil. But this is fucking stupid. Like, creating changelings that you can't track, and then
Through
just
torture.
assuming that they're going to be like, "Yeah, sure, I'll work for you now." Like, okay, doesn't seem very well thought out. But at least we got an answer to why they look like bacon when they shapeshift as opposed to the old goo, and how they quote unquote evolved so quickly. So makes sense.
And
Go ahead.
even though they don't have to return to the Great Link and get into liquid form anymore, that was still the crux of one of the episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll leave that
I,
little plot hole there.
yeah, they can.
Step
Yeah.
over that one.
You're not supposed to remember
Well,
3 or 4 episodes ago.
Oh, that's
just
right.
because they don't have to doesn't mean it doesn't make it more comfortable.
Oh, is that how they let their hair down?
That's why
I
they
don't
still
know.
carry around their goo bucket with residue.
I'm just spitballing.
Careful, spitballing's what got us season 1 and 2. Stay on target.
That was all season 2 was. Just throw some ideas at me. We'll put it in the show. I promise. No filters. Anyway.
It's like a bet.
There's no such thing as a bad idea.
I bet you can't make a season, and then they just rattle off like 6 plot devices or plot elements, and he's like, done. And that's what season 2 was. I was 7 or 8 episodes in before I realized that Picard's mom had red hair. I thought she was a brunette that whole time. I blame my old plasma screen TV, but it all made a whole lot more sense, at least at the end, when I figured that part out.
Okay.
That really bothered me, and I forgot to bring it up back then.
Okay.
Okay, where were we?
I think we're at the part where Picard's like, I didn't know, but now I feel sympathy for you.
Yeah, we're talking about how
What was done to your people?
Starfleet doing this. That we have no trouble believing that Starfleet would do this, even though anybody would know that this would backfire on you.
Right. But I'm talking about, but then Picard, says, I had no idea. I'm sorry for what was done to your people. And he looks at Beverly, he's like, so, should we execute the prisoner?
And
and,
what we're about to do to you now.
and Beverly's like, I have no more moral compass. Let's fucking do it. And he's like, all right, well, set phasers 2. We can shoot this bitch 43 times and she won't die. And they point the phasers at her. Beverly's like, I don't like it. She's too comfortable. And she's like, I have read the script. And in about 2 more minutes, Laura's going to take control. They're like, how do you know that? She's like, I read the script. All right. Because all of a sudden, Geordi does not have control anymore of the ship. He's like, what is going on? The shield regulators are failing. We got to get my daughter out. And all of a sudden, the door closes and Laura steps in. Uh-oh.
And we get evil Brent Spiner again.
I have control. And we actually get a really good, LeVar Burton acts the hell out of this.
He does. Also, if this was a Lower Decks episode when Laura was walking over to the door, his cords would have run out of length and it would like jerked him into the floor. All right, Jordy, we're going to have to do this long distance.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what would have happened. I got no, I got no retort to that.
That would be. Maybe I just need to stop watching Star Trek altogether, except for Lower Decks. Maybe that sort of slapstick humor is just exactly what my brain hole's capable of digesting.
I mean, you could go worse. You could go worse. Anyway, Laura says, enemy of my enemy and all that bullshit. And so he lowers the force fields. So Vadic gets out, and even though Picard and Beverly were primed and ready and aimed at her, they miss her every goddamn time. Or maybe they shoot her. She gets away really easily.
Mm-hmm.
She goes in the vent system. So she's on the loose now, and now Jack and Sydney are getting the shit beat out of them, and Geordi's watching it on the monitor. He's like, please, Data. He's like, Data, you made me a better person and a better friend and a better Commodore and a better friend and a better engineer and a better dad. And it all...
Am I repeating myself a lot?
Yeah. It was still a good moment. But luckily for Geordi, Jack activates remote kill mode where
oh man.
He goes full puppet master with Sydney.
Yeah.
In her mind, she's like, tell me what to do, Jack. Tell me what to do. And he's like, initiate remote connection. He's like, roll, duck, swing, punch, grab the gun, shoot him. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, he
Konami coded her. Is what he did.
I don't know what he did. He hijacked her brain hole or something. Because I guess he's establishing a Borg collective with her. Is that Warden's theory?
Sure.
Well, how are you explaining him controlling her body?
I mean, it has to be something Borgy. Yeah.
Something Borgy.
Yeah.
Maybe she got a little changeling in her, too.
That could be.
But I don't know. So now Vadic's gone, and Sydney's saved, sort of, by Jack. But the changelings capture Shaw, right? Isn't that the next thing that happens? And head towards the turbo lift. And Seven's like, they'll never take the bridge. And then they immediately take the bridge.
Not right.
While Beverly
was
looks
happening.
goes,
A lot was happening on this ship in a lot of different places, and I kind of got confused. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. Yeah, it was very. I mean, it was. They were jumping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Picard and Beverly, about this time, I think, decided to go look at the files on Project Proteus, and they found out that there's a stabilizing isotope that they can use to track it. And they're like, "Huh, looks like they're going to the bridge." And they get there. Right about the time Vatic shows up on the bridge with. I thought the turbolift was the only way on the bridge, but everybody comes in from like every angle. Whatever. And they take over, and she addresses her ship. She's like, "This is captain of the USS Titan. We're gonna take Jack Crusher where he most belongs. It's time for you to find out who you truly are." Dun dun dun. And that's Star Trek Picard Dominion.
Mm-hmm.
Willie, do you sort of remember it now?
I told you I'd remember it once you started. This is the same thing every week. But
How'd you feel about it?
a lot
Was
seemed
that a
like it.
changeling?
A lot seemed like it happened. I mean, we advanced the plot, I suppose. We now no longer have control of the ship. I guess that is quite a big plot advancement. And we know that there's still something strange about Jack. And now we know the changelings have a little bit more to do with it. But I don't know. Like I say every week, I watch these and I don't hate them, which is, a huge improvement over seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And it's still coherent and it's still moving forward, and we advance the plot somewhat. So now we know Jack's got something kind of wild and crazy going on that was somehow influenced by the changelings. We know how the changelings were created and got the way that they were. It didn't make a whole ton of sense how they're like, we run across these, like Davy Jones, and they run across these people and offer them a chance to become a short-lived changeling with a tiny half-life. Didn't quite follow that part. That's kind of Borgy, if you ask me, to Warden's point. But the Borglings. But like I said, we advanced the plot. I didn't hate it. So that's my review of it. What about you guys?
Well, I'll let Warden answer since I've talked a lot already.
Well, I mean, I think it's fine. It's kind of what you said. I mean, it advanced the plot. It is still light years better than season 2, and there were some fun interactions, or at least some enjoyable interactions. I am pulling some thoughts together here about the fact that they've established, for whatever reason, that some people, for reasons that aren't well explained, are mistrustful of the transporters, as you stated or brought up again. And it feels like everything is obviously like, rushing toward Frontier Day. And I'm just like, I'm wondering if there's some sort of thing where something is, because it wouldn't be the first time that we have introduced like pathogens or something into people using the transporters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if there's not something to do with that going on. Or like sleeper agents or God only knows what.
It's such a bad idea. The whole fleet is going to be in Earth. Like, that's so dumb. Like, can you imagine the entire United States Navy just being like, "Hey, yeah, we're all
It
going
would
to
not be
pile
done. I
into
mean, you
New
you
York Harbor
can't do
for..."
that.
Yeah.
So either they have assurances from all of the enemies and potential adversaries on the border, or they are fucking confident that they can get the fleet wherever it needs to be fast. One or the other.
I don't even know why they need to do anything at Frontier Day. The changelings appear to have infiltrated Starfleet so completely that like they should be able to do pretty much whatever they want to do at this point. I mean, they got to Tuvok incredibly quickly. They've infiltrated all of like Starfleet intelligence. I mean, I'm assuming that it's changelings that came up with the idea to get the whole fleet together. Or I don't know, maybe Starfleet's just really stupid. But
Well, bringing the fleet together sounds. I don't know that sounds very like a changeling idea. It sounds very Borgy, like I've been trying.
I mean, it
In terms of it being something that they would be desirous of.
yeah, but I just meant it sounds like a changeling thing in that it would be easier to destroy them if they were all together.
Mm,
Just sounds like an enemy thing. Like if I were going to
yeah.
fuck up the fleet, I'd say, well, let's get them all together and let's have a Kelpian scream. Was that Sue Call in the background? Holy shit!
No, that's Scruffy the idiot.
As opposed to Sue Call, the idiot. Anyway,
He wasn't an idiot. He was handicapped. He
uh,
didn't have an education past age 7.
yes, he did. He had a hollow education. Remember, they left him a holographic tutor that raised him, and I don't remember. Let's not talk about
Yeah, let's
that.
not talk
No,
about
let's
that.
not.
Don't waste the brain cells. Yeah, it's
All right. Well, I hope Riker gets more to do next week. It may be a Prison Break episode starring Worf and Rafi getting Troy and Riker out. But I do think next week we'll probably learn the
That'd be
story.
a fun episode. I'd watch that,
Yeah.
and I probably sounds like I may watch that next week.
I don't know. I have a feeling like some of the threads that are currently out there are going to start getting very hastily wrapped up. I don't know that it would be I don't know that it's going to be like an episode. I think it's going to be like an act at the most.
Well, I can see next week being an A plot, B plot of Worf and Rafi going after Riker and Troy, and us finding out what the story is with Jack. So
Yeah, that's likely.
anyway, I didn't think it was a bad episode. Lots, I felt like the pacing was pretty good. It advanced plot some.
Hmm.
You know, it, once again, it felt competently done,
Hmm.
which is not a hallmark for Picard. Certainly
Certainly
not
not
the
in the
norm,
first 2 seasons.
right? But yeah, um, give me just a tick. Talk amongst yourselves.
Wait a tick.
Just a second.
He's
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, that's Picard. What are we talking about next?
Next, we are going to Star Trek Strange New World, Season 2, Episode 7. Those old scientists.
EOS.
Willie, aren't you glad you watched the episode of Lower Decks last week?
I am so glad I watched an episode of Lower Decks last week.
I thought about you because at one
This would
point...
have been so hard to have watched or even understood had I not.
Yeah, I think it might have been a little bit nonsensical if you didn't
Yeah.
know Lower Decks. This is not one that I think you could have skipped Lower Decks and
We did find the only
seen
officers who were
brilliant.
less professional than current than some of the current shows though.
I don't know. Tilly's right up there with these two fuckers.
Oh
In
man,
terms
thank
of
God
that.
they didn't do this episode with Tilly.
Jesus. Don't stop bringing up Discovery, goddammit. But I thought about you specifically at one point. They're talking
I,
about this era, and Boyne was like, "Why does everybody speak so slowly here?" Because you
I
had
stopped this episode twice and started it back over because I thought Paramount Plus was like somehow like conflating my choices. I was like, wait, I chose Strange New Worlds, right? And then like I stopped it, I went back, I started over, and then I'm like, what? I was like, this is Lower Decks. But I rolled with it that second time, and then it made sense. But
So I was aware there was a crossover episode coming.
Mhm.
But I didn't know it was both Boimler and Mariner, and I had no idea it had animation in it. I was so I was like Willie, I was pretty surprised as well. But
I hope they do a crossover where they make like Pike show up in Lower Decks now. That would be a hoot.
this should have ended with Riker on the Enterprise D saying "in program" and looking at
Yeah.
Dan and be like, "That was a fucked up story." So it'd been a triple crossover. All right, so those old scientists. We start out on the USS Cerritos with Mariner and Boimler prepping for away
Portal
mission
inspection.
duty. Yeah, portal inspection. Rutherford's like, chronotons? I hope there's chronotons. I love measuring chronotons. And Tim D mentions that, hey, that portal was discovered by Orions. Well, it was like Orion scientists in that era? That doesn't
Ryan's
sound
just
very
pirates.
piratey. She's like, God damn it, racist Boimler. He's like, I'm just saying it's an era appropriate. I'm not saying current Orions, just, back then. So they get down to the planet's surface. Boimler stands in the portal and is like, live long and prosper. And they're like, that's your Spock impression? He's like, yeah, I've been working on it. It's cool. And Rutherford takes a picture and Boimler's like, oh, portal's trying to portal me. Well, stop lurching towards it. There were so many one-liners in this. I really need to just not do every single one of them, even though I want to.
Mhm.
I think they mentioned that the portal is made of unobtainium, which is what the NX was made out of. So
Heronium. Yeah.
whatever.
Come on, get it right.
Plot device a night.
Was that the same? Was that the same actor and actress who do the voices for those two characters?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't look that up. I figured that it was. Sounded like them, but sometimes voice actors are real uggos. That's the reason that they're voice actors and they don't
Yeah.
have very good screen presence. So
I thought they did very well.
I thought they did too.
But anyway, the portal starts portaling and it spits Boimler out while we see Una and La'an and Spock, I think, have gone down to investigate a portal and spits Boimler out. He's like, you look so realistic, and then falls back and Una's like, number one to Enterprise. I think we got a problem.
Yeah, or to beam out.
Oh, and then Boimler, and then I think is that when we get the cold open with the animated version of the regular cold open? I mean, not the
Oh,
coda,
do you mean
but the credits scene
yes.
intro.
Yeah, which
Yes,
I
that
loved.
which was awesome.
Yep, I loved that.
It looked really good too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They can animate the hell out of some starships. The animated scene at the end, maybe not so
Yeah.
much, but we'll get there. So Boimler wakes up and he's like, "Hi, I'm Captain Christopher Pike. Computer in program." And everybody's like, what?"
What?
Like, oh my god, what day is it?
This reminded me of the episode of Family Guy where Peter's like, when he took some shrooms and things got way too real, and it shows him as like a real person. Like, holy crap, I am freaking out.
The Simpsons did
Oh
that
man.
like 20 years before that. The Treehouse of Horror episode where Homer crosses over into the real world.
Yeah.
Mm. Then he finds an erotic cake shop and he's good to go. He's like, ooh. Oh, anyway. He's like, all right, it's start date, whatever. And Boimler's like, only 5 digits? That seems perfectly normal for this time. Pike's like, I know you're from the future, so you can fucking drop the act. Boimler's like, oh, thank God. And Pike makes a fun of him. Boimler's like, Captain, what is this? Oh, anyway. Uh, he uh he geeks out. La'an reminds him of the rules of time travel, which is don't step on any butterflies and don't whatever they are. Don't fall for alternate Captain Kirk. Uh he goes and he waits in the conference room. It's like, don't touch anything, don't touch anything. Oh my god, a saddle. And then maybe the funniest moment of the episode, he gets on the saddle and he swings his leg over and goes, Riker,
Yeah.
which was improvised and is
Was it really?
hilarious. Yes, and it's hilarious when you realize that Jonathan Frakes was sitting there in the director's chair and was like, yes, that is fucking staying in.
Oh man.
Oh, and so he rides his imaginary pony until a horror walks in and is like, no judgment, but you're fucking weird. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. And let's see. Then I think next is that they go back down to the surface, right? To try to examine the portal. And Boimler is freaking out because he's with Spock and Benga. He's like, oh my god, is that a TS-120 tricorder? And Benga's like, yeah. He's like, oh man, they can't beat these. I mean, sure, they got smaller, more powerful, less prone to explosions. He's like, explosions, you say? And they're like, oh, looks like there was just barely any unobtainium left on this thing. And Boimler's like, I guess it was just dumb luck. And Spock goes, oh, that's funny. Assigning chance to illogical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Bingo. Is that
This
normal?
is
He's like,
so weird.
nope. Just started. So now he's getting worried. Then back on the bridge, the landing party beams up because there's the new ship's approaching. They're like, that almost looks Orion. He's like, well, yeah, it's Orion. I totally built a ship in a bottle of that. They're like, shut up.
Yeah. It's a science vessel. Orions don't have science vessels.
Uh, that's considered racist in my time. Boiler's like, oh my god, the bridge of the NCC 1701 dash. Oh, nothing.
Nothing.
Lon's like, well, no ship. Oh, come after the dash. Oh, and
You gotta speed this up, Joe Bob. You were literally going line for line on this thing.
it's so good.
It's like you're reading the script.
I skipped one of the jokes that I liked where she's like, apparently the badge is also a communicator, Pikes, but the flippy dippy's the best part. And it's like,
Yeah,
I
like
know.
that. Yeah,
I
that was pretty
know.
good. And of
Anyway,
course, we'd already had Una being a pinup girl. Well, he acted real awkward around her. We didn't know why yet.
right.
So she was freaking out about it.
It's like, I wonder if he knows something. But let me just say too, Pike's facial expressions in this episode are phenomenal. He is hilarious. Anyway,
Yes, he is.
Boiler's like, they're definitely not pirates. They are not here to steal anything. Pike's like, okay, I trust you. And then they're like, sir, they just stole the portal. And Pike's like, God damn it. It's like I'm playing cards with my brother's kids. Anyway, I think at some point Boimler decides to cool off and go down to the bar, and Pike and Ortegas are like, "Hey, what you doing? Can you tell us about the future?" And Boimler's was like, no." Like, come on. You can come to movie night on Friday. He's like, Friday? You're having a movie night for Pike's birthday? They're like, it's his birthday? He's like, yeah, it's a holiday. Like, okay. Cool. And then that's when Spock walks in and smiles, and Boimler's like, oh my God, I've broken everything. So he tracks Chapel down and follows her into the turbo lift and is like, did I break Spock? He's smiling and laughing, and Spock doesn't do that. And she's like, yeah, maybe he's trying some things out. He's like, no, you don't understand. I've read everything about Spock, and at no point is there any smiling. He doesn't have any blonde girlfriends. Chapel's like, what? And then Boimler realizes he done fucked up. He's like, I'm very sorry. It's like, it's okay. I didn't really want to influence. Anyway, he decides he's going to go back to the bridge where he overhears them say, well, we're fucked because there's no way to track the Orions. He's like, I can track the Orions. And Pike's like, he's like, no more future stuff, future boy.
Everybody turn around.
And so he leans over to Spock and goes, tell Captain. He's like, will you tell Captain Pike that I know how to track the Orions? And Pike's like, I can still hear you. He's like, well, what if I did it, but you just turned around? And number one's like, that's so fucking dumb. We can't just turn around. Can we? And then Spike's like, I don't give a shit anymore. He's like, this is going into full-blown hijinks. I'd turn it around. So they track the Orion down, and Pike's like, you may have accidentally stolen our portal. And he's like, I'm not a pirate. He's like, no. I mean, maybe trade me something. So he trades him. They got grain on board. So they trade it. They get the portal back, and they take it back to the planet. They put it down, and they're like, all right. Pike's like, get the hell off. Or go back through there. Get the hell out of our time, because it's been a day already. And there's only enough for one more trip. So they fire it up, and just as Boyle's about to walk through, Mariner tackles him and is like, Boymes, I did it. Oh my God. Like, hey, holy shit. You guys, is Uhura here? I mean, Spock, you're cool, but come on, Uhura? And now Pike's like, Enterprise, 5 to beam up.
5 to beam up.
Like, I started the day with no time travelers. Now I've got 2 time travelers. God damn. And Boimler and Mariner are doing their usual shtick of like, Boims, man, I saved you. Like, how did I know you were coming back here? You could have ended up in San Francisco in a riot. They're just like, their references are oddly specific. And anyway, Mariner's like, I can work with Uhura. And Boimler's like, she's like, and Boimler can work with Spock. He took an elective. And they're like, okay, well. So they pair off to each go do some hero worship. And Uhura's having trouble. So Mariner's like, come on, you're supposed to be like you know how to have fun. Like, you dance with palm fronds with your boobies out. Uhura's like, what? It's like, yeah, let's go have some Orion Hurricanes. So they go down to the bar and they're drinking. She makes Orion Hurricanes, but they don't have the real Orion booze, so she has to fake it. And she's getting along great with Ortegas, and Ortegas like, hey, I know these symbols. They're ancient Nausicaan symbols. She mentions running into some Nausicans on Earhart Station, which Picard then references in the episode we watched later.
Yep.
I was like,
Mhm.
2 references to Earhart Station in 1 week. How about that? And they figure out they're Nausicaan.
Amazing what happens when you try to go for continuity.
I know, right? Um, Although that doesn't go anywhere, does it? She recognizes the dialect, but then they don't
Well,
figure anything out
they
from
come
it,
back
right?
and they say they're like, all it says is in Nausicaan, this is a time portal.
Right. Okay.
They're like, so didn't help much.
Right. So it's basically like Lower Decks, where they're just making it funny. No, it doesn't really advance the plot. So meanwhile, Spock and uh, Boimler are doing a science project. It's like, I could use a hand, but
Yeah.
you might lose it. And then does his smile. And Boimler's like,
Yeah.
oh, my second favorite part of the episode is it starts the centrifuge and it starts sparking,
Sparking.
and Spock just like quickly walks out of frame, doesn't say a word. Boimler's like, "Is the sparking okay?" And Spock is like, "No, you should take cover quickly."
Yeah.
He's like halfway. He's like halfway out of the room. Um, so it doesn't work. They can't synthesize the unobtainium, so Boimler heads to the engineering to mope around and basically to be called a dumbass by Pelia. And then she says, I once fucked Cary Grant, and he said something about I faked it till I made it. And Boimler's like, that's what I'm gonna do. So he decides that he's gonna head down to the shuttle and contact the Orions, right? And Mariner's like, you need me on this, Boimler, because I do shit like this and I never get caught. And immediately Lon's like, what are you doing? She takes him back to Pike's quarters, and Pike is like, I am done with this bullshit. You're confined to quarters, take you to Starbase, then you're their problem. And Ensign Boimler, quit telling people to throw me a surprise party. And they're both like dancing around, like, well, you just never know how many birthdays you might have. And Pike's like, look, I know about the boo box. And Mariner's like, he knows about the boo box. He's like, I was gonna go to ice fishing with my dad's memory and have a conversation because this year I'd been older than he was when he died. And then Mormler makes a good point, kind of the heartfelt moment of the episode. Like, well, don't you think there are going to be people on the Enterprise that wish they could have had one more day to talk to you and have the conversation with you? So Pike's like, "Hmm, wow, that's actually a solid point there, Boimler." So anyway, they get to, I guess he decides not to confine them to quarters because they're back in the conference room, and Boimler's like, I would like to apologize to everybody with the limerick. And Mariner's like, shut the fuck up. Like, I know where we can get some unobtainium. The NX classes were built with them. They're like, oh, all we got to do is pull one out of mothballs. Like, nope, nope, because starships made with that have the same name. And Pike jumps in. He's like, are always laid down with a scrap from the old one. And Mariner's like, and I know where it is because I paid attention during the tour. And Spock goes, it is unusual because she normally pays attention to nothing. It is very annoying. So they go dig up part of the NX-01, and Ortegas and Uhura, I think, are like, hells yeah, NX-01. That was a bad boy. My high school was named after Travis Mayweather. Uhura's like, Hoshi was the. She's like, she spoke 175 languages. I'm like, oh my god, we sound like those two. So they get they contact the Orions, get them to bring back the portal again. I don't know, something. They get a hold of the Orions,
Mhm.
and they meet him down there. They take the unobtainium, and Spock throws Boimler a bone. He's like, "Ensign Boimler, live long and prosper." Boimler's like, "You live and beams out." But before they beam out, Mariner goes to Uhura because you know earlier, as Willie said, she had asked Mariner like, what is his deal? It's like, oh no, he's got he's got a poster of you pinned up in his bunk. It's like, a pinup poster? Well, it's a poster that's pinned up. Are we talking about the same thing? So when she's before they leave, when Una's at the transporter station, she's like, the poster of you? It's like, it's a Starfleet recruitment poster. She's like, I'm on the poster? Yeah. And Bourne was like, yeah.
And the logos ad Astra per Aspera.
She's like, they put that on there? That was the title of my episode. Like, I know. She's like, well, I'm very disappointed in you breaking temporal protocols, but thanks so much, guys. Oh God. By the way, the other thing that I thought, Pike's face. This was my third favorite moment of the episode. Pike's face when Mariner's like, you can't confine us to quarters. He can't be disciplined by the guy he dressed up for his Halloween.
It's Halloween, yeah.
and the look on Pike's face, it's like, what? She's like, yeah, he contoured the chin and everything.
And the hair.
Really?
That's something about the hair too.
Really? And Boimler goes, it was a process, sir. Yeah, the hair was when he was on the bridge. He's like, I mean, diplomacy is what you're known for, in addition to being forgiving and kind and having great hair. Oh, this is fantastic. Anyway, they beam down and they bump into the Orions, and he tells him like, hey, I got to get back home. I think Pike is like, look, I'm not gonna bullshit you. These guys are from the future. They need to get back. Boimler's like, yeah. He's like, and it's like, and my friend, and he calls her by her like Orion pirate name. He's like, why'd you? It's like, well, her name's Tindy. She's on my ship. He's like, we got a Tindy. How do you know that? And it's like, because we're time travelers from the future. I feel like this guy's not listening. And anyway, they beam back and get back to the Cerritos, and
the Orions agree to give the grain back in exchange for Pike letting them claim to have found the portal, made the scientific discovery.
Right,
So
they close the time loop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then when they pop back through, he's like, you're right. The Orions did discover this portal. See, I told you.
Mm-hmm. And then another little moment that I liked was they get back on the ship and you see the poster again of Una, and just to prove that it really is it's not a pinup poster, it's just a recruitment poster. Ransom comes by and goes, numero uno, hottest first officer ever, am I right? I'd love to plow that shit. And it's hilarious on a couple levels, because one, it's objectifying her in the way that Una was absolutely adamant that she did not want to, but it's also very funny because that actor is married to Rebecca Romaine, so it's okay that he says it, that he thinks she's hot. And we close off with back in the Strange New Worlds era, but this time in animation, which is a weird choice, but they play it off as they're now drinking the Orion, the legitimate Orion Hurricanes, because they got some of the absinthe or whatever from the Orion captain at Pike's birthday party. They're like, I feel really weird. Bingo's like, what the hell is in this stuff?
Holy crap, I am freaking out.
Oh, and that is those old scientists. Strange New Worlds. Season 2, episode 7. Warden, how'd you feel about those old scientists?
I love this episode.
Oh my.
I thought it was hilarious. It wasn't, so often when they do this stuff too, it's just like, oh dear God, this is such a stretch. And I mean, yes, it was, they were making things happen, but it felt organic enough. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
And honestly, the only thing that makes it, kind of notable is one's animated and one's not. But I do like how, the references are great. The humor created by the time travel situation is handled great. And I like the little references also to like the different media as well. We already mentioned things like that. You look very realistic and stuff like that.
Why do I feel so
Um,
two-dimensional?
yeah, no, I thought it was great. Of
You
course,
know,
I really also I like Lower Decks a lot too. So I mean,
this crew is really funny.
mhm,
The Strange New World cast, I guess I should say. Like they do comedy very very well, I think.
mhm,
And the show by it's another we've talked about this before about how it's so nice that Strange New Worlds can give you a horror episode, a thriller episode, a courtroom
mhm,
episode, a comedy episode, um, because of the episodic structure of it. I mean, obviously you could not do this in this season of Picard or in a season of Disco. It just would not feel it. You just can't.
Right.
You can't insert it into that overarching story of the changelings infiltrating Starfleet to suddenly have the lower decks crew step in and part of it be animated. You know. Um, and I know we talked about last week's Picard episode as being an Easter egg factory and a whole lot of fan service, and sometimes that gets a little bit old, I guess. But this episode, I don't know. To me, it felt more like a love letter to Star Trek. Like it was fun. Willie, what do you think?
I thought it was great. I mean, I actually found myself chuckling through most of it. Like it was legitimately funny, you know.
Hmm.
And I mean, yeah, it was a ridiculous episode that still had a coherent premise,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that's hard to pull off. I mean, like obviously we had the lower decks characters being just as silly as they are on the lower decks the show, right?
Hmm.
mhm,
Um but then you kind of also brought the Strange New Worlds cast along a little bit to being silly, right?
Right.
But not so much in a way that you said, this is just everybody hamming it up.
mhm,
It was still a Star Trek. There was still a very Star Trek type plot that you had going on, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and
so no,
everybody was true to their character too.
mhm,
It's not like the Elysian Kingdom where the comedy comes from them being totally different than the
mhm.
character they've established. I mean, everybody was doing basically what they would do.
Well, and it also helps that Strange New Worlds tone wise is kind of funny in a sitcom-y way
Hmm.
instead of being just like, madcap crazy SpongeBob nuts. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was fantastic. I I laughed out loud several times. It's I think it's my favorite hijinks episode.
and I don't know, I mean, yes, I am sure Willie got a lot more out of it from having seen Lower Decks, but I kind of feel like especially the way they led off with a little bit of Lower Decks, there was enough of the feel of Lower Decks communicated that you could pick up on it. Probably not as much as if you hadn't had previous experience with it, but
Yeah. Well, you definitely don't need to have seen all 3 seasons of Lower Decks. But I
mhm,
think Willie having seen the one episode was probably a good thing.
yeah.
yeah, Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, having introduced the characters, so I kind of knew who they were and what was going on, definitely helped.
Hmm.
Yeah, I did watch a little bit of no, I forget what the show was called. Will Wheaton like interviewing the two characters,
Yeah.
and the guy that plays Boimler pointed out that, or maybe Will Wheaton pointed out, whatever, that apparently Shax is a goddamn monstrosity because he's like a foot and a half taller than Boimler. But now that we've seen Boimler, he's like the guy's like 6'5".
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a good point. I hadn't put that. Yeah.
but yeah, I
He is Papa Bear. I
he
mean,
is Papa Bear.
With Dax, the Bajoran tactical
Yeah.
officer.
yeah.
Okay.
Um. Yeah. Just so yeah. I could go on about this episode, but I'll just say I loved it.
There's a new season, by the way, of Lower Ducks, like on September 7th
Mm-hmm.
is when it starts. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, Lower Decks has gotten better each season. The first one is
Hmm.
like I kind of struggled to get through about the first half of season one, and then it started to find its footing. Season two was a lot of fun. Season three was great. So
Hmm.
here's hoping season four is continues that to build momentum.
Hmm. Okie dokie.
Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, Those Old Scientists, season two, episode 7. Thumbs up. All right. Well, as we tend to do, we also watched a couple classic Trek episodes. The first of those, Warden actually picked TNG season 2 episode. I think it's the 17th episode of that season.
Hmm.
Samaritan Snare. Warden, tell us a little bit about it and why you picked it.
Well, I mean, Samaritan Snare is it's one of the I don't know if it's classic in the sense of being like fantastic. It's an enjoyable, it's definitely an enjoyable episode. But it's definitely one of the I classic in terms of just like the lore
Mm-hmm.
um that comes out of it, especially since the pack led factor a whole lot in lower decks. So and but honestly the main reason was because um Willie had not seen it. Um and as we heard last episode, I that was apparently unacceptable to me because I'm like, what?
I was shocked by
So
that as well. This episode is so good, I forgot it was not from season 2.
yes, it is an enjoyable episode for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, I when I think about this, the Packlet episode, I just like assume it's like a season, you know, 4 episode.
Hmm.
Um,
This is late season 2. Um,
yeah, true.
if I remember, I mean, they were. Season 2 definitely built steam. It was not to the season 3 level and beyond, but
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
Willie, so you had never seen this, or did you remember it as it came along, as it went along?
I had never seen it.
Well, what did you think?
Well, obviously, I appreciated it more now that I knew about the pack leads and lower decks, right?
Mhm.
Um, and of course, it made a lot more sense now when y'all were talking about like we need to go or make us go. Um,
We are not smart.
I mean, yeah, like it look. I mean, this was like a Dan Aykroyd bit, like
Mhm.
a lot of this. But
And now it makes sense. Captain Freeman on Lower Decks be like, the Packlets? I thought they were a joke.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was well. So there was obviously a plot A and a plot B, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought plot B was really ironic that we just. I don't know if Warden remembered this part of it. With Wesley and Picard sharing the shuttle together, and
Mhm.
like Wesley being like, "Haven't you ever wanted to have a family? And don't you have any kids?" And which I'm sure at the time, I'm like, you had this just brooding Picard for the entire episode, right? But
Uh-huh.
like I remember thinking like I bet this had to be a little eye rolling at the time, that it seemed stilted and forced. But now that I watched it, having seen Star Trek Picard now, um, I went back and I watched this and I was like, this it was almost like they went back and kind of pulled something out of TNG that made sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so that part was interesting. And Wesley's like, but you don't really like kids. I mean, how I thought Wesley was still supposed to be like 16 or 17 at this point in time. Why does he talk like a 12-year-old or a 7-year-old maybe?
I,
Um,
I thought he was more like 15 or 14. I could be wrong.
maybe so, but um,
That was part of the problem with the first couple seasons of Star Trek is
They
yeah,
couldn't decide how
they
old he
sc
was.
no, that they wrote him terribly and screwed him as, like, an actor and a character.
yeah.
That's
Wow. So that part was interesting, and then of course you got the whole Nausicaan backstory, which fed into Tapestries, which was really good.
Yeah.
Um, and
So
so I did think one thing I had to look up was at one point Wesley was like, "That was before the Klingons joined the Federation." I was like, "Wait, what?"
I think that was a fuck up.
I did. I went
yeah.
back and read that, and they retconned it later. But at the time, the Klingons. They were almost going to write them in as a footnote and move away from them from the TOS era,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and so they were just kind of going to just basically say, "Oh, they're in the Federation now," and then create new, you know, antagonistic characters. And then I think in either season 3 or 4, it said that they made the decision to make the Klingons more unique and make them a more integral part of the show. So they kind of just brushed it under the rug a little bit.
You know what's interesting about that is season 4. I want to say is the same year that Star Trek 6 came out. I wonder if because that one focused so heavily on the Klingons and made them more interesting, that they're like, oh hey,
Maybe
we'll
so.
kind of draw a dotted line from that to the future and extrapolate out.
Yeah, maybe so.
Mm.
But yeah, so there was that whole plot, and it was nice knowing Tapestries, which is just such an incredible episode. And then you got this little tidbit talking back there. You got the whole family discussion and kids discussion with Picard, and then it was obviously some irony that it was a Crusher who was talking to him about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Um, but then the A plot with the pack leads, I mean, yeah, it was kind of like a bit, right? With them just like waddling up around him,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, can you make us go? Can you make us strong? And
Riker tried to talk to the guys at the beginning. They're like, "We go far from home. We
yeah,
find things,
yeah,
things to
fine.
make us go."
Um, but it was a good
I do
episode.
love how Frakes played. He played "You've gotta be shitting me"
Mm-hmm.
really well.
Yeah,
This is another trope too of like nobody fucking listening to Worf. Worf's like, "It could be
this is not a
dangerous."
good
They're
idea.
like, "Shut up, Worf." Like, we should not send our chief engineer over without security. Shut up, Worf.
Even Troy coming in. I don't think these guys are as helpless as you think. Shut up, Troy.
Well, that
They at
never
least,
really
Yeah.
stopped.
um, but yeah, I thought it was good. um, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was fun, and what I didn't realize at the time were callbacks. There were a lot of callbacks to this episode.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Yeah, so I remembered the Packlet episode. I didn't remember it, like I said, as being a season 2 episode. Um, I vaguely remember the shuttle trip, but I never would
Mhm.
have known that it was in this episode. And I actually found that to be the more interesting part of the episode. Kind of like Willie said, there's a lot of that gets developed later on. I was actually surprised that they laid all the groundwork and established the artificial heart and the fight with the Nausicaans um, way back in season 2, and then didn't, and then because Tapestry isn't until season 6,
Mhm.
and it was like I said, it was funny hearing another reference to Earhart Station in the same week. So, uh, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good pick. It was a better pick than I initially thought because I remembered it being fun, but I actually did not remember the shuttle ride and the artificial heart part. Um,
And it is cool how, like, because there's times when they talk about a character about something in their past, and then they actually develop that more later,
hmm
and there's only a passing resemblance to the original story and the expansion,
hmm
and and that he related in this episode tracks
Yeah,
completely
right
down to
down to
the
him
him
looking at the blade
laughing.
and laughing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I like Tapestry. We may have to watch that at some point as well. Although I think we all know that one well enough that it's probably unnecessary.
yeah, we can just watch it for fun just because we do love it.
Good choice, Warden. Do you have any
Well,
closing
thank you.
thoughts on it?
No, though I will say, um, because I mean, because it's season 2, it's a Pulaski episode as well. Um,
Yeah.
and you know, it reminded me that as the second season went along, she got more interesting. Because she was the interplay between her and Picard was actually fairly interesting. Um, I do kind of wish they developed. I mean, found a. I don't know. I mean, I like Crusher and everything, but I think Pulaski might be a somewhat more interesting character.
I
It
think
would have been it might have been nice if they let Beverly be a little more Pulaski-ish in terms of having, some rough edges instead of being just like
having pink ribbons in her hair and
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but
Actually, it's interesting because she's actually a good bit more Pulaski-ish when you get to um Picard season 3. She's
that's true.
definitely definitely more rounded out and um
Yeah, but it would
prone to murder.
Picard season 3 would have been harder to have pulled off. Thinking Picard nailed Pulaski.
Oh God, I I I like the characterization of Picard not wanting the crew to like wanting to keep this image of not being broken.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Um,
and Picard made another reference again about him like being a womanizer and chasing women during his younger days, which was one of the other episodes we watched recently from
yeah,
like early seasons, and I didn't remember that,
yeah,
but
and
I don't
something
know
he
if
brought up to Jack, when they were
yeah
talking in
Mhm.
10 present.
yeah. So I didn't know if that was something that was consistent throughout, the whole show. I do remember in Tapestries him waking up next to Q and like morning Jean Luc.
Mhm.
So I do remember. I remember a couple little references to it here and there, but
That is an incredibly creepy thing, by the way, in retrospect. Like him, yes, to the girl, to his classmate, she's seeing her 20-year-old classmate that
Mhm.
she's banging, but like it's still a like 55, 60-year-old man banging a college student without her knowing that that she's banging a 60-year-old dude, which, good for Jean-Luc, but it's a little creepy.
Yeah.
Anyway, not all
Don't
TNG ages well. Product of its
don't think
time.
about it too hard.
Harvey Weinstein was like, "Yes, I like this episode." Anyways, so Star Trek: The Next Generation, season 2, episode 17, Samaritan Snare. We have one other classic episode. This one is considerably more controversial. This is the Star Trek Enterprise finale, season 4. These are the Voyages. I picked this one for a few different reasons. One, when we watched our Lower Decks episode, Riker comes in. He's like, I was just watching Archer and those guys on the holodeck. And I love the idea that he just likes to go hang out and be the chef. Um, let's see. We also had a crossover episode this week. So I just thought it'd be a good time to watch another crossover episode. And we had talked a few weeks ago about the Pegasus and how I think the next phase, the TNG episode, the next phase, kind of linked to the Pegasus, and this one has a very strong link to the Pegasus episode.
Mhm.
So that's why I picked it. Obviously, it's set 5 years after the previous episode of Enterprise, or maybe you didn't know this. It is set in the future from where we last saw the crew at the end of the last episode in Enterprise. They've completed their
Mhm.
mission, headed back to Earth for essentially the founding of the Federation. And Tran, their old buddy, who we didn't know they thought he was dead, but they thought he was dead sometime over the 5, 6 years we missed, calls him, asks for help. They have to go help him. And this is all intercut with Riker watching this, Riker and Troy watching this and talking about it. And so the episode I guess is technically set during the TNG episode, The Pegasus, which we find out as it goes on. So, what did you guys think of this? Let me ask Warden first.
Okay. So this first just had this is the first time I've seen it.
Okay.
So giving that context, I didn't think it was a bad episode. It was actually kind of interesting. Um, um, but I will say, I have to say that it's a lot more interesting as a TNG episode than it is as an Enterprise episode. So I can understand why the people were pissed when this came out, and they're
There
like,
is there is a strong contingent. Like I don't know if it's the majority of Enterprise fans, but it is a large percentage of them that hate this episode.
"Hmm,
Just FYI. Sorry, continue.
no, I can see it. I mean, I am not I'm not a Enterprise fanboy, so I can, but yeah, I know I can see that, but I mean, I enjoyed it. It's I think the Enterprise scenes are well done. Well, the whole thing is reasonably well done. Um, but I mean, this cast is acting in a episode of their show. It's the final episode of their show, which is emotional as it is, and it's been kind of hijacked. and they managed to pull off a good job anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would have liked to have been able to see, and in a normal final episode, you might have um see um Archer's speech and that kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I thought it was a really cool. It was kind of a neat premise. Yeah, I have mixed feelings. I do feel like the Shran stuff, even though I mean, obviously it's central to the episode. I don't know, maybe he was just coming across as like just really awkward. I don't know. Or just the fact that maybe I felt like I had missed something. I didn't realize because, I still haven't seen big chunks of Enterprise. Like, okay, so obviously there was an episode where he got killed, but apparently not.
I
Um,
don't think so. I think that
Maybe you were confused because you thought he was Wayun. I was
uh,
like, I know this guy from somewhere.
it's possible there was an episode where he was supposedly killed off. I don't remember one. That's not saying that it didn't happen, but
mhm,
I thought that they just that something had happened in the time gap
mhm.
that they thought he was dead and had not heard from him for several years.
Yeah,
But I could be wrong. Regardless, that whole side plot, it just feels like it's just giving them something to do to get in the way of going to do the speech.
right.
Um, there's a little callback to the episode we watched where he met uh, that Enar, whatever nurse,
Mhm.
and he ended up having a kid with her. So a little connection back to that one. But
Yeah.
I don't know, Willie, what did you think?
Well, it was the first time I had seen that episode. Of course, I've watched very little Enterprise anyway. I think I've watched the 3 eugenics episodes and then this one, right?
So it wasn't such a
Uh,
long road for you
it
getting
was
from there to
not.
here.
Um, this was a really good TNG episode. I thought it was a fun TNG episode. Um, had I been an Enterprise fan and had I been a fan of a show and had watched it for 4 seasons and this was the finale, I would have been absolutely furious. Um, for a litany of reasons, but number 1, I mean Jonathan Frakes basically stole the show, right?
Hmm.
He was the main character of the show, and the main cast of the show you were watching were the supporting characters of the episode, right? Um, it felt cheap to kill off one of your main characters
Hmm.
like that in
Yep.
the finale episode. Um, and to kill him off in what I since I didn't watch the show, I don't know what his character really was, but you basically do a side quest and get like your companion killed, and you're like, "Ah, shit! I forgot to save it before I went off on this. I can't even reload it."
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, like that's what this episode was. So I
Let's
feel
let's
like it
put
was
let's put the engineer in a situation he's been in 100 times before, and managed to figure his way out, like because he's wanted to survive. But in this one, he's just gonna be like, fuck it, I'm gonna blow myself and everybody else up because
right.
we've hit this one little speed bump. Yeah,
Yeah, it felt very very even to me who hadn't watched the whole show. It felt very cheap.
it was. Yeah,
Um,
and that is by the way one of you guys are hitting on all the complaints that the Enterprise fans have, and that's a big one. Is that Trips they kill off Trip very unceremoniously with him doing something stupid. It's written like an afterthought. Like, we need somebody. We need to fridge
we need
somebody.
right, and so I thought that was cheap. Like I said, I would have been frankly just shocked if I had been a fan of the show watching it and saw this for the first time. And then, like I said, the plot of the episode was Riker wrestling with a moral dilemma. It didn't
Yeah.
have any. It was not about the Enterprise crew. And I think the most heinous of ways to flip the bird to the Enterprise fandom was he ends the program before you even hear the speech. Like, you could
Yeah.
have at least let the speech happen. And Riker's
Mhm.
like, so Deanna's like, so you've made up your mind? He's like, I have, but I can't not hear this speech. I love, it gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. Then you hear it and then drop the curtains, right? And I honestly was shocked that they did that they just ended it. Like, I was really expecting that to have been, how it ended.
So
Especially since that's what the Enterprise part of the episode had been building toward the whole fucking time.
Right, yeah. I'm
well, not you mean the whole the whole
the
series?
whole series, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's
Well, both of them, yeah. Both the episode is all the Enterprise crew is all talking about the speech the whole time,
mhm.
and the whole series is like the founding of the Federation.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so we
I
just
I have not done any homework because I don't usually prepare for these. So I don't really know that much about what was going on behind the scenes. But this feels like contempt on a level like that the Witcher writers have for their fans
it
right
felt
now.
like a surprise cancellation of a season
Well, it
or
felt
a
like
series.
it got canceled, and there was a showrunner that was just bitter about it and was like, I am so fucking sick and tired of people being like, why isn't it more like TNG? Well, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to end Enterprise with Riker saying computer in program. Here you go. We'll do a TNG episode.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck fuck the fans for not supporting this show enough.
You talking about Weinstein? How about Riker freezing program and then kissing DePaul?
I would
Uh,
I mean, he's not the first
ain't
one to have
blame him.
done that, I guarantee you.
But no, I like I said, it felt like a TNG episode.
It would be a much
mhm.
Um,
better crossover episode. I know, obviously,
yeah, had it gone
Enterprise
the
had
other
not,
way.
obviously TNG was long off the
I
air.
mean, you could have made the next phase of part 1 and part 2 and done this, and it would have been okay. I mean, obviously you couldn't have it because it didn't exist at the time, but you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying. Like, um,
Well, and
it,
the episode even finishes up with the Enterprise D flying through the minefield. I know we get this one bonus scene, I mean, through the asteroid field, of the space, the final frontier, and it does end with Archer's voice in the NX-01, but like, really, it ends. Enterprise ends on TNG, on the
mhm.
holodeck of TNG, and cut to external shot of the D flying through the asteroid field.
Mhm.
And I'm with you guys. I think that as a Star Trek fan, taking this as an episode, I think it's a pretty good episode. You know, when you put it in the context of this is the Enterprise series finale, I absolutely understand why people think that it's a slap in the face to the fans of that show.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Was the chef even a character, or did they concoct him for this episode?
I don't ever remember the chef being a character.
I don't either.
I think it was concocted for this episode
And I mean, it
because I don't think they would have.
didn't even make sense because was Riker a big cook on the show?
No,
Like,
he's
it'd
no
been different
pipe.
if Pike. It'd been like it'd been different if Pike was running this program. Like, they could have picked something that seemed more in line with Riker's character too. But I mean, I guess that's a minor gripe amidst the sea of
Mhm.
What, like Troy gone to
jackassery.
him and been like, "You should be the ship's gigolo instead of counselors." That's who they talk to. I mean,
That's right.
that was
They
the
need a
point. Was
they need a
they?
trombonist.
Oh
You see
God.
what I did there?
Yeah, yeah. Riker's definitely the tromboner of the. Anyway, But that was the point. Was there was no counselor. I don't think they had a cook character. They just had to come up with someone that would be in a position to talk to the crew in a setting where
Right.
they would be where they would let their guard down, and you know it would be a relaxed scenario. So that part works. That part didn't bother me. Um, I liked that better than when he was like, "Computer, play in objective mode." I'm like, I really enjoy it because I like the Pegasus episode, and it's a good companion piece to it. It's almost like a short treks or complimentary episode. But
Mhm.
like I said, as an Enterprise episode, it's fine. But I mean, that's a brutal series finale,
Mm-hmm.
and I agree with the
To
people
me,
that
to
feel
me,
like they did Trip dirty.
to me, it reminds me a lot of like the reception of the Seinfeld finale, right? Which
Mhm.
I liked because by the time I watched Seinfeld, I watched it in syndication. You
Mhm.
know, basically watched episode after episode every night. There were two on back to back. So then, the Seinfeld finale is basically a clip show, right?
Mhm.
And for me, I was okay with it because it just reminded me of like all the episodes and it was funny and all that. But I can imagine somebody who had been watching Seinfeld on network TV once a week for 10 years to get a clip show finale. I could see where that would probably, infuriate them, right? It had a really mixed reception as well.
Mhm.
Oh, it did.
Um,
I uh, I actually kind of like the Seinfeld finale because I don't really like Seinfeld.
Mhm.
we'll, I mean,
I'm not a big
like I said, I like it, but I know that
Because one of the reasons I don't like Seinfeld is because it stresses me out because I feel like they're not very good people.
oh, they're specifically not by design. Yes.
And
which was the crux of the finale.
yeah, and the crux of the finale is like, no, really, they're all kind of pieces of shit, and we're gonna prove this in court, and they're finally gonna go to jail. They're finally gonna have serious consequence. I mean, I know they have consequences as a show. They don't exactly do great in life, but uh, yeah, so that's why
Well,
I'm
and
okay with the Seinfeld
and,
finale.
and then the fact that it also shows that the characters never like grew or matured because the final dialogue is the opening dialogue of the pilot.
Yep,
Talking about the button on George's shirt.
it's in no man's land.
Yeah, it's too high. See, Uh, it's too high to be the last button. It's too low to be the second button. But we've digested.
So we're
Um,
talking about Seinfeld, so obviously we're
yeah, we digest. Um, yeah, that is a finale to Enterprise. That would have totally been a slap in the face. As a
Hmm.
TNG episode, it would have been a fun callback.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, that's how I've always felt about it. Seems like you guys are all on the exact same page as me. Uh,
Mhm.
but definitely worth a watch. And if you can tell yourself it's not the finale, and from what I
Yeah,
remember, there's a two-parter right before this one that is a much better finale. So like, if you can just watch that as the finale and then segregate this as a TNG episode,
Mhm.
um,
yeah.
then
Well, like to me, it was obviously I didn't know the characters very well, but some of the characters, like the British guy or whoever, he had very very little dialogue. The
Mm.
he did almost nothing. Talking about Reed, Malcolm
except
Reed,
yeah, except saying
Yeah.
Dirty
all
Keith.
good things, right? He threw another TNG Easter egg out there, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
the the Asian girl, she had very little dialogue. I don't know who she was, but I know she was a
Oh,
main
she
character.
yeah.
She had very very little dialogue.
Oh,
Really
she's
out
the one that Ahura was fangirling out over.
right.
Mhm.
Basically besides Archer, Trip, and to Paul, you didn't really, you got some little tidbits from Phlox there at the end talking about his wives and all that, which actually that was kind of funny, but um and then they're all
Well,
just sitting there in the audience being like, "Hey, so what are you gonna do?" "Well, I'm probably gonna join this crew or that crew," and all that. It just felt,
it's a Riker episode.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
Riker has more lines and more to do than Reed, Mayweather, Hoshi combined.
Yeah,
I mean, really,
but
Reed and Mayweather and Hoshi might as well not even be in this episode.
yeah,
No,
I, I can certainly see why it was poorly received.
no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was fun. I enjoyed this week.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Um, so I'll go to Warden. Warden, what's your favorite episode that you watched this week?
Those old
And
scientists.
why, I was gonna say, why is it those old scientists? Willie, what's your favorite?
I'm gonna have to go with those old scientists as well. Well, I give it a part A and a part B. From a enjoyability standpoint, I really enjoyed those old scientists. It was the most fun episode we watched. But I really did find the B plot of the Samaritan Snare really interesting, having known what the future of Star Trek became after that episode.
That's
But
fair.
I'm not gonna. I wouldn't say it's not the winner, but it was a damn close second.
Well, my favorite episode this week is actually none of these because I went back and watched Tattoo again, and
It's even better the second time.
it's even better. This is way more than 2 times for me. But yeah, uh, but second place is
Did you
definitely
watch it on
those.
HBO so you actually got to see Chakotay's junk?
Oh, they don't call him the Rubber Tree Man for nothing.
Jeez.
I don't even know what that means. I'll leave it to your imagination. You see Chakotay neck and you're like, "Yep, Rubber Tree."
Uh, you know what?
Any
I will tell you, as a gay man, that's not optimal. Um,
All right. All right, yeah. So I'm going with those old scientists. Sorry about that.
Nah, it's all right.
Um, well, good times. Enjoyed it,
mm-hmm.
and we'll be back next week with another episode of Sheer Fucking Hubris. We're closing in on the end, you guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're on the home stretch. We got a lot to.
Yep.
We got a lot to wrap. Well, we don't have a lot to wrap up with Strange New Worlds because I don't really know what I would say the overarching plot is.
There isn't one. Isn't it
Right.
wonderful?
Well, it is, but you know, uh, I'm trying to think. I feel like, did season one have anything, or was it purely episodic? I felt like the whole Pike Boo Box thing was looming for most of the season. I don't feel like there's anything like that looming this year or this season, except we do keep
Well,
making the
you keep
occasional
making the
Gorn
Gorn
reference.
reference. I
Yeah,
think there'll be
Yeah.
something with the Gorn.
yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
but it's not.
Mm.
It still has been more like afterthoughts.
Well,
It's like a
it's been
backdrop.
more.
it's been teases. I would
Yeah,
call it more
It's been,
teases than afterthoughts.
yeah. It's been like a lot of episodic shows that tried to weave something in were like in the past where it's like, they reference it, but they don't make it the central focus of things. So
Yeah.
I think
what is it reminds me a lot of is it Bones or whatever, where they talked about
I've never seen Bones.
it's
Nor
a
have I.
No
it's
spoilers,
actually a
Warden.
fairly good police procedural, but but they weave in um an overall story,
The only
but
police
it's very
procedural I'll watch is Dexter.
but yeah, well,
Are you
so
joking?
but anyway.
Because that's another show that went downhill.
I actually didn't watch it long enough to see it go downhill. And they took it. I was going back through it, and they took it off Netflix or Hulu, whatever it was on,
I
like
enjoyed
6
the
months
first
ago.
3 or 4 seasons.
Those are probably all the ones I've seen. I saw up through Jimmy Smith's, which I think is probably about the time it started going. I think that was season 4.
I saw it through John Lithgow.
I did not see John Lithgow.
I think he was a season after Jimmy Smith's. Best police procedural is Lucifer.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine's pretty solid too.
I thought that the only one you would watch was Dexter.
That's true.
Okay.
You've got me there. Although
Warden.
I was joking because I wouldn't regard that as a very police procedural. But
Yeah, Lucifer is not all that police procedural.
nor is Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
So. Warden, we need to make the ship go.
Make us stop.
Make it broken.
Nice. Well done. Okay, this is Bodie Warren, Joe Bob and Mr. Willie signing off.
We are not smart.
Speak for yourself.